and Bibi back for chapter 10 of Flowerantha. Bibi, who do you have with us today?
I have Lilac, and the reason I named her Lilac is because on her head up here, there's all kinds of flowers, and one of my favorite flowers are lilacs.
Yes, that's very cool. We have a lilac bush outside, actually. And it's very appropriate because Beverly's dress has lilacs on it.
Ooh.
We didn't even plan that. That's amazing.
And I didn't even know that.
All right, chapter 10. Do you think Maylin and Bushrell are here yet? Asked Beverly. They must be by now. How will we find them? I think we need to find something like a waterfall. That's how you got to Flowerantha. You've never been in this castle? It's huge. How are we going to find anything? Good question. A voice from above boomed. What are you children doing here? A landwalker guard holding a long spear shouted down at them from one of the watchtowers. Mash opened his mouth to say something, but the guard continued. You should be inside. There is work to be done. Beverly glanced at Mash, but his gaze remained up toward the guard. Of course, we're just getting some fresh air. Beverly grabbed his wrist, but he ignored her. No excuses. Get inside. Mash stepped forward, and Beverly released his wrist and held his sleeve by the elbow instead. Her legs trembled as she advanced toward the doorway, which was too small for a monster knight to pass through. Beyond the door was a courtyard. In the center was a statue of a man jutting out from a sand dune, piled up to the statue's knees. Beverly tugged Mash's sleeve and cupped her hand up by her mouth. Who is the statue of? Mash leaned in close to her ear. The man is shrewd tonight. A man ran up beside them and spoke in Floweranthan. Mash replied in Floweranthan to avoid arousing suspicion, and Beverly crossed her arms and nodded, pretending to know what was going on. The man gestured for Mash to follow him, and Mash said something else, pointing his thumb at Beverly. In response, the man shook his head and walked away, urging Mash to follow him. Before following, Mash planted his hands on Beverly's shoulders. Find some place to hide. I will come find you in a little bit. This man thinks we work here, and he wants me to help him move something. Beverly panicked. How will you find me? Mash took his hands and held them with the palm. Mash took her hands and held them with the palms up. I wish for 2 looking glasses, one for Beverly so that she can see where I am, and one for me so that I can see where she is. A small mirror appeared in each of Beverly's hands. Mash took one out of her hand and held it up to his eye, and then buried it between the leaves in his shorts where a pocket would be. Beverly held the glass up to her eye like Mash did and gasped as she saw her own face. It'll show you what I'm seeing, he said. Wow, where'd you learn to do that? I got the idea from Tumsky. He touched Beverly's shoulder and hurried off after the man, leaving Beverly alone in the courtyard. Mash followed the man down a corridor, Mash's leather sandals and the man's bare feet slapping against the stone floor. The man was tan and bald, and a scar sliced right through his eyebrow and down to his cheek, making his left eye droop. Where are we going? Mash asked in Floweranthan. Filling the fountains. What, have you been on brick duty or something? You look terrible. Yeah, brick duty. It is hard work. Mash wiped his forehead like he had just been working in the hot sun. I was on brick duty all last week. But they want us working on the fountains now for some reason. Those sandbags are even heavier than the bricks. A tall, wiry young man with dirty brown hair that brushed his shoulders was already at the fountain, heaving a sandbag onto the edge of the fountain. He slashed the corner of the canvas bag with a knife, and the sand poured into the basin. Good, you are back, the young man said. I brought some help. The bald man gestured to Mash. He came from brick duty. Oh, brick duty. I hear that is one of the worst jobs. It is pretty bad. Mash snuck a peek at the circular piece of glass in his hand. Beverly appeared to be running through some sort of dining hall with long tables set up. Where are you going, Beverly? He whispered. What was that you said? Asked the older bald man. Nothing. He shoved the glass back into his pocket. What do we do here? The young man nodded toward a wheelbarrow overflowing with 50-pound canvas bags of sand. I just reloaded the wheelbarrow. Grab a bag and start pouring. How many fountains are we supposed to fill? 5, said the young man. 4 inside at each of the corners of the castle, and the one in the courtyard. Mash heaved a sandbag out of the wheelbarrow and dropped it onto the ledge of the fountain. A puff of sand wafted into his face, and he sneezed. The young man offered him a knife, but he pulled out one of his throwing knives that he had wished for earlier. He poked the knife into the fabric and dragged it to try to cut a hole. His other hand, holding the top of the bag, slipped, and the bag hit the floor with a bang. Sand poured out over his feet, and he rushed to pick up the bag again. The young man laughed. Good job. Come on, boys, hurry up. I do not want to miss the meal. The older man grabbed the other side of Mash's bag to help him lift it and ripped the top without using a knife. The two supported the bottom of the bag against the fountain while the rest of the sand drained out. I am Mash, by the way. Mash put his palm to his chest. The younger man made the same gesture. I am Lontano, but you can call me Lonnie. The older man, as he put his hand over his bare chest, nodded. I am Dormir. Why are they making us fill these fountains anyway? Asked Mash. Lonnie stopped lifting the next sandbag and balanced the bag on its end in the wheelbarrow. It is better not to ask questions. Why do you think my lips look like this? For the first time, Mash inspected Lonnie's face. His irregularity wasn't as obvious as Dormir's scar until he brought attention to it. Lonnie had large lips that sagged into a frown. Lonnie tugged on his bottom lip. This is one of the Monster Knight's punishments for insubordination. The punishment for talking back was to stretch my lips. Mash cringed and brought his fingers to his own lips. They were gritty and tasted like sand. What other punishments are there? You should see my brother's lips. His are even worse. They seem to like to do things to people's faces so that the punished can serve as an example, said Lonnie. It used to be little cuts like a snipped nostril or earlobe, but lately they have gotten into stretching. They like to experiment with different punishments. Dormir touched his scar with his middle finger. This is an experiment gone wrong. They were trying to put a device in my eye to prevent me from blinking. I was struggling, their tool slipped, and I ended up like this. His hand balled into a fist. Do the Monster Knights do all of this? No, they employ the Zomps to take care of it, said Lonnie. Mash grumbled. I had my own Zomp encounter just yesterday. The men went back to work transferring sandbags, so he changed the subject. I heard there are visitors in Flowerantha. Do you think the sand in the fountains has anything to do with them? Dormir's eyes darted, and his scar twitched when he moved his forehead. Are you crazy? Did you not understand Lonnie's warning? Do not say things like that around here. Footsteps echoed in the hall behind them, and Mash forgot about the sand dribbling out of the bag he was holding against the fountain. Who is coming now? Asked Dormir gruffly. Mash fumbled with his bag when he saw the two figures, a small girl with long dark hair and a taller boy with wavy blonde hair and blue eyes that were unmistakable even in the dim hallway. Their clothes were pristine, and they stood out next to the three dusty males loading sand. Did you find Beverly? Mash asked Bushral and Flowerantha. Bushral leaned closer to Mash and said in a low and threatening voice, No, I thought she was with you. If you let anything happen to her. Maylin kept quiet, but her head swished from side to side as she tried to locate her friend. What is he doing here? Is he supposed to be some kind of soldier? Lonnie nodded his head in Bushral's direction. Mash's eyes shot up. You know English? Yes, most of the Landwalker guards here do not, so we use it to communicate when we do not want them to understand. Well, we understand it. Maylin stepped forward, her soft-spoken voice sounding more authoritative, like Olivia's, with only a slight waver. Bushral puffed out his chest. Indeed, yes, we do. I have some unfinished business with this russet, and I insist he come with me. You can handle the rest of the task on your own. Lonnie put his hands on his hips. No, we cannot. Not really. We have many more bags to go. Get back to work, Dormir said in his gravelly voice, like he had been inhaling sand for days. He threw an empty bag at Lonnie. Maylin took another step forward, standing between Bushral and the men. She commanded, Stop goofing off, or you'll all be in trouble. At her harsh tone, the workers bowed their heads. Yes, miss, take 'em. Gracias. She took Bushral's arm, and Mash followed, his jaw slack. Bushral flashed her an appreciative look. You would fit in nicely here, Bushral said, putting his hand over hers. Where did that come from? Whispered Mash, trailing behind them. Beverly's mom. Her lips curled into a demure smile. With 5 kids, there's a lot of yelling in that house sometimes. Her smile disappeared a second later. Is Beverly okay? Yes, she is. We had to split up so no one got suspicious. Mash reached into his pocket and pulled out the looking glass. This shows me what she sees. He held it in both hands and studied it. She was running through a hallway, much like the one in which they were standing. All these hallways look the same. Where did you go after you fell from the Aquasis? Asked Bushroll. After I fought off the monster knight, we landed and tried to find you. We met a Zomp who zapped us all the way back to my home. Is that Tumsky? Asked Maylin. Yes, how did you know? We met him too, Bushroll frowned. He told us that you were halfway to the castle and that we should hurry up. That doesn't make any sense, said Mash. The hallway opened up into a circular entryway. On the left were doors that led to a large dining room. To the right were 2 other hallways. Tired workers with dirty faces and hands and disheveled clothes trudged out of each of the corridors and into the open double doors of the dining room. This must be the meal Lonnie and Dormir were talking about, said Mash. Maylin stood on the tips of her toes. Do you think Beverly is in this crowd? Mash took the looking glass back out of his pocket. The glass showed the back of someone wearing a shirt made of twigs. Shoulders of other people came into view around the edges. I think so, yes. The 3 pressed their backs against the nearest wall to watch the sea of people with their solemn faces drift by. Maylin spotted Beverly first. There you are! Beverly pushed past a couple workers with blank expressions and ran to Maylin, collapsing against her in a hug. Maylin squeezed her back, and the girls jumped up and down a little. Then Beverly reached for Bushroll but stopped. Good to see you too, said Mash. Oh, stop. I'm happy I found you. I broke my mirror like 10 minutes after you left. Beverly presented a shard of glass that was 1/3 the size of the original circular piece. I could still kind of see, but I still didn't know where I was going because all these hallways looked the same. Mash and Beverly said in unison. Mash held up his own looking glass. That explains all the running around in the wrong direction I was seeing. We were so worried about you, said Maylin. I'm glad you made it to the castle. Now I can figure out how to return you both home, said Bushroll. He clasped Maylin's hand and squeezed it. Mash gathered them into a huddle while the last of the crowd brushed past them. I think the fountains are the key. There are 5, and I think 1 must lead to the Amaranth. Well, we should go while everyone's eating dinner, said Maylin. Good idea. Mash patted her on the shoulder. We should split up so we can move quickly and cover more ground. Maylin squirmed. I don't know if that's a good idea. We are not splitting up again, said Mash. Bushroll bared his teeth at Mash. I am not risking it. We need to move quickly. Mash broke the huddle and stood nose to nose with Bushroll. And we can do that all together. Fine, I'll go alone, said Bushroll. Beverly grabbed his arm. Bushroll, don't go. Maylin, you think we should stay together, right? Asked Mash. Maylin was caught off guard by his question. She stared at her hands. I see Mash's point, but if Bushroll thinks we don't have time, then I trust him. Bushroll's face softened. Thank you. Now, Beverly, who are you going with? Beverly crossed her arms. I'm staying with Mash, and you should too. Maylin frowned. Beverly, you're being impossible. Beverly pouted. I am not being impossible. I just don't want to get separated again. I fell off a flying horse, Maylin, and I didn't know if you got eaten by a dinosaur. I just want to know you're safe. Beverly, Bushroll tried a soothing tone instead of a stern one. I understand that you're afraid. Getting you home is my job, and I'm not going to fail. Fine, you go, but Maylin should stay here, said Beverly. Bushroll smoothed down his vest. Maylin, are you coming? He outstretched his hand to her. Her eyes darted from Bushroll to Beverly's squinted eyes and set jaw, then back to Bushroll. She sighed. Bushroll, it's not worth the risk for me. I'm sorry. We already lost Beverly once. His hand dropped to his side. Very well. He spun on his heel. Bushroll, wait. Mash handed Bushroll his looking glass. Take this. We'll use Beverly's broken one. At least you'll know where we are. Bushroll snatched the glass, and with one last glance at Maylin, he was gone. Maylin's gaze did not leave his back, and Beverly stood behind her and held her shoulders. You made the right decision. I hope so. Do you think he'll forgive me? Mash piped up. Bushroll doesn't seem to be the forgiving type. Beverly shot him a death stare. But it's you, so yes, I think so. That was the end of chapter 10. Join me to see how the kids get out of the castle hopefully back to the Amaranth in